Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Jay is off tonight. Falling snow and dropping temperatures make for a dangerous, even deadly night across the region. We woke to Mother Nature's wrath. The falling snow relentless as temperatures drop and highways and streets turn to black ice. News tonight that one woman is dead after a crash on Highway 87 near Roundup. No word yet on the victim's identity. The crash around 3:40 this afternoon stopped traffic for hours. Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Joe DeYoung tells Q2 two vehicles collided in a partial head-on crash. For reasons still unknown, he says the southbound vehicle crossed the center line and hit the front end of the driver's side of the northbound car. DeYoung says a female passenger in that northbound vehicle was killed. No word on the others involved. Now, DeYoung says the weather is a possible factor in this crash. Drug and alcohol use are still under investigation. Well, the winter that will never end, that's what it's starting to feel like. After a nice spring weekend this morning, a rude awakening for many people as they hit the streets and highway. And it didn't stop there. The Montana Department of Transportation spent the day and night responding to slide-offs, rollovers, and accidents all across the region. Despite the snow, the city of Billings will not be plowing. Instead, trucks will sand and de-ice the city streets. Schools are also impacted by the sudden winter onslaught. A heads up for School District 2 bus students. Buses will take alternate routes Tuesday morning. Also, a number of school closures and delays due to the weather. St. Charles Mission School, Pretty Eagle School, and St. Labray Catholic schools are closed tomorrow. As for delays, Morin School, Roundup Public Schools, and Lodgegrass schools are all on a 2-hour delay. Turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire, I don't think this is the meaning of April showers, no, Bob.
That's a very good point. Yeah, so far now we've measured over 7 inches of snow here in the Billings area.
Wow.
And we're not alone. Let me show you some of the other snowfall amounts we've been keeping track of. One of the big winners was 18 miles southwest of, I believe, Fishdale. They had 19 inches of snow. Livingston's had 10 inches of snow, and they're still counting there as well. You'll notice over here at Red Lodge, 9 inches of snow. Laurel has had 8 inches. Big Timber, 7.6. Billings, 7.3 inches of snow. Now, by the way, over 7 inches of snow now makes this the third snowiest winter in Billings on record, only eclipsed by the winter of 2013-14 and the winter of 1996 and 97. And as you can see, the Doppler radar shows you the scattered snow showers are slowly starting to make their way to the east and out of our area tonight. And so because of that, we've had some of the winter weather advisories. They've been canceled and not updated, but we still have a lot of snow to go for most of eastern Montana. You'll see anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow in that area. So it's going to be still kind of a snowy night, but at least in the Billings area, we're starting to wind it down. Jeanelle?
All right, thanks so much, Bob. The U.S. and China are one step closer to a trade war with American farmers caught in the middle. Overnight, China imposed significant tariffs on more than 100 imported American products. Simon Cullen reports.
China has fired back less than 2 weeks after President Trump announced tariffs on some Chinese imports. Beijing has slapped tariffs on 128 American products worth $3 billion. The country's foreign ministry spokesman says China doesn't want a trade war, but it is not going to back down if provoked. The move will hit US farmers hard. There's now a 15% tax on most US fruits, including apples, pears and cherries. It also applies to almonds and wine. China is also targeting American pork products and aluminum scrap metal with a 25% charge. American soybean farmers are worried that if it escalates, they could be next.
If there were any type of tariffs on our soybeans going to China, it would be disastrous. We really rely on our export markets.
On the streets of China, though, there's little sympathy. This hotel worker says it's absolutely right for China to fight back against America. But China's latest move could spark further action from the White House, one step closer to a full-blown trade war, which experts say neither side will win. Simon Cullen, CBS News.
Montana pork producers already concerned about the potential impact. In 2015, Montana farmers had about 175,000 pigs and hogs, making the state the 23rd largest producer of pork in the U.S. About 1/4 of all U.S. hogs, including those in Montana, are produced for export. The National Pork Producers Council says China imported more than $1 billion of U.S. pork last year, making it one of the largest international markets. Now, President Trump says he's preparing to impose additional tariffs on high-tech Chinese products worth $50 billion. And it appears investors reacted to that as they retreated from the tech sector. Another big sell-off on Wall Street as the Dow fell nearly 2%. Kenneth Craig reports.
Stocks fell sharply again on Monday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was off nearly 2%, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ saw even steeper declines.
The first quarter of 2018 was the worst for Wall Street in like the last 2 years.
Some big-name tech stocks were hit hard. Amazon plummeted more than 5% after President Trump's Twitter attacks on its business practices.
You're seeing how affected Amazon can be for the first time in a negative way. It's really because of potential government intervention.
Facebook shares dropped more than 2.5%, continuing a decline that began last month with reports of mishandled user data.
Anything that impedes their forward progress is a sell signal to a big investor.
The so-called FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, have seen their market value drop by about $324 billion in the past 2 weeks. Investors were also reacting to China's decision to impose tariffs on some 1,200 U.S. commodities.
The bottom line is the market just hates the uncertainty of how all this is going to get sorted out.
The White House called on China to end its unfair trade practices instead of targeting what it said were fairly traded exports. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, New York.
The Montana Democratic Party and 3 of its supporters filed suit late today to remove the Green Party from the 2018 Montana ballot. The suit, filed in State District Court in Helena, says Democratic Party activists reviewed voter signatures on the petitions used last month to qualify the Green Party. It says at least 180 of those signatures are invalid, and when those are removed, the petition falls short of the required minimum in 8 legislative districts. Now, without those signatures, the Green Party cannot qualify for the ballot, and its candidates cannot file to run. 6 Green Party candidates filed to run, including 3 in the U.S. Senate and U.S. House races. Now, this suit isn't the only action taken by Democrats against the Green Party. The party also says the Green Party paid to have an outside agency gather signatures, but did not report that spending to the state, which is against the law. A roadmap to help identify how residents move about Billings was released at the City Council meeting tonight, and Q2's Dustin Kleeman has more on how it will help the city with future transportation. Dustin.
Good evening, Jeanelle. A typical Billings resident makes a little bit more than 3 trips per day and travels nearly 6 miles in 16 minutes. That's according to a new survey. And that survey will help decision makers better understand necessary improvements to where you drive. Data was gathered from more than 2,300 people, 1,100 households, by using an app to collect GPS-based travel data. Now, the study calculated 8,400 trips in a month's time last year, and it doesn't come as a surprise that a majority of trips are made, 90% are, by vehicle, while only 7% is done by biking or walking. Now, to get to work, it takes an average, like I said, of 16 minutes in the region. Public transportation remains low in Billings. The Met Transit accounts for just 1% of trips. Engineers say the data collected with this survey will not only support model redevelopment in the region, but also air quality and emission projections. Analysis of travel mode choices and other types of analysis will be among the many possible ways in which this data set can be used for general planning needs ahead. Jeanelle?
All right, thanks so much, Dustin. Well, 2 weeks after a rally in downtown Billings demanded action on gun legislation, a pro-gun rally will take place in the Magic City this Saturday. Gun advocates peacefully rallied at the state's capitol on March 24th. Billings organizers are inviting all supporters of the Second Amendment to this Saturday's event. We spoke with an organizer of the upcoming pro-gun rally, and he says he's tired of gun owners being portrayed as villains. He wants people to know gun owners are responsible citizens who don't deserve to have their Second Amendment infringed upon.
Why do I feel that way? Because my guns have never harmed anybody. I've never harmed anybody with a firearm in my life. You know, when I was in high school, I got into a fist fight. We didn't use guns to shoot people with, and we took our guns to school. You know, so I think it's more of a culture thing than it is a firearm thing.
Now, that rally starts at 11 a.m. Saturday at the Yellowstone County Courthouse. Siegel says there will be guest speakers, and he expects several hundred to attend. Well, it's been 6 months since a gunman opened fire on a crowd of more than 22,000 people at a country music concert in Las Vegas. 58 people were killed and more than 500 others wounded in the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. As Danielle Nottingham reports, for many of those injured, it's still a long road to recovery.
Amanda Peterson didn't think she'd make it out of the Route 91 Harvest Festival alive.
I remember laying in the grass thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to lay here and die and never see my son again.
A gunman fired more than 1,100 rounds of ammunition into a crowd from a window at the Mandalay Bay Hotel last October. Amanda, a chiropractor, was shot in the back.
Fragments went everywhere, so I had damage to my spine, fractures to my spine, and damage to my aorta and my kidneys and my liver and my stomach and my spleen.
And how is your pain today?
There's good days and bad days.
Amanda hasn't been able to return to work yet. Her therapist says this Southern California office has been flooded with requests from survivors still struggling with their physical and emotional health.
Many of the survivors from the Vegas mass shooting are having trouble just going out in public.
Especially with school shootings, I worry about my son to be shot and the fear that my poor son could possibly see something like this. It does scare me.
Despite her fear, Amanda wants to see change.
The gun didn't fire by itself. We have a serious mental health crisis in this country. I'm so grateful to all the doctors and nurses.
When she's able, Amanda plans to return to Las Vegas to thank the medical team that saved her life. Danielle Nottingham, CBS News, Riverside, California.
More than half of the 58 victims killed lived in California. Hundreds of shooting victims have filed lawsuits against the estate of the shooter, the concert promoter, and MGM Resorts. Coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, a small cabin in the middle of nowhere quickly became a big story everywhere. Tonight we go back to 1996 and the capture of the Unabomber. Plus, later tonight, a former Great Falls detective says he solved some of the nation's most well-known murders. And in sports, Scott shows us what Rockies football offense is trying to correct this spring.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Jeanelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2.